Hello and welcome. I'm Liam, the music reviewer. Anti-me won't be making a return. Moment of respect and solitude with him.
Because you had a bad day, you're taking one down, you sing a sad song just to turn it around.
And today we're going to be returning to the ranked series where, I just kind of, as it says in the tin, I rank every album from an artist from worst to best. We did it with Death Grips last time. Good response from that. A lot of kind of good discussion down there. I'm sure most people that are watching me probably know me from that. And yeah, I did appreciate that a lot. And I thought, you know what, keep the ball rolling. And we'll do it for another artist that I like a great deal. Probably one of the first proper artists that I got into back, I think it's around about 2012. And yeah, why not? Let's go through their work in general. And if you don't know who Radiohead are, maybe this will be a good kind of like starting off point for you. I'm not going to divulge too much into details about them. I might sprinkle some through each of these albums, but I don't want this to go on any longer than it needs to be, because God knows you guys don't need a 30 odd minute video about some white guy talking about a band that you already know about. And I probably won't be bringing much new to the table that somebody like Deep Cuts hasn't already. But yeah, let's get started with what I view as the worst album. Can't wait for the response to this. Can't wait. You know I had to do it to him. Really, this isn't that hot a take here, especially because when Melon did his one, he had King of Limbs at the bottom, and really I can't argue with that. I think everyone wants to put Pablo Honey at the bottom of their Radiohead list. We'll get to that later on. Really, I've never really been interested in this album from the get-go. When I first listened to it, it was one of these albums of Radiohead that I didn't really get around to until there was this whole kind of like silence from for a while. I was like, you know what, might as well get into the rest of their stuff. Bought it on vinyl with a gift card I got for my birthday. Bad move. I should have picked up whatever Elton John album they had in there, because really this is just a regressive album, and not in an interesting way where a band starts like strip a bit and show off a bit more skin, kind of hot when you think about it, but in more of a sense of their sound. It feels like there's no real benefit from it, and there wasn't really much interest in that. There doesn't always have to be like a benefit of it, but like when you're trying to go for this sort of style, you can't just be completely abstract. You really need to build upon it, and I really don't think there's any song on here where I felt tantalised or fulfilled or really much of anything. I really don't come back to this album very often, and it's not because it's a difficult listen subject matter wise, it's just because it's very mundane. There's not a really distinct feeling to this, where there's other albums where they keep things kind of very one note and it's to its betterment. There's nothing like that on here. Lotus Flower is probably the closest this album gets to providing anything I would consider interesting, but even then I just don't really feel that infatuated by it. So yeah, I would, if you've not listened to Radiohead, would not start here, and if anything I would probably say just skip it in general, because everything they try and do in this album, they either did better beforehand or they did better afterward. Now you might think, oh Liam, you think Pablo Honey is better than King of Limbs and you must think it's good. No, ball bag, I don't think it's good, but I really don't think it's as bad as most of the Radiohead fan base, or as just like the general consensus would make you think it is. It's definitely not a good album, but I don't think it's bad. I think it's perfectly adequate, especially for a debut album. I guess for a lot of people, when you see what came afterwards, yeah, it's so kind of like, I would say it's probably bad in comparison, because it really doesn't offer anything new. Even on the follow-up album, The Bends, anything that they do even competently here, they do 10 times better on there. But that being said, even if you start comparing it to all their contemporaries at the time in alt rock like the Smashing Pumpkins, there's some good songs on here. Of course I'm going to talk about Creep, because you can't talk about this album without talking about Creep. It's like a quintessential track from it, but it's genuinely good. It is genuinely good, and if anything, even as a Radiohead fan, you have to respect it as a song, because if it weren't for that, then we wouldn't really have Radiohead. It was such like a financial kind of like safety bag for them that just kept them going, even if the band probably hate how successful it was. And yes, songs like Ripcord, I think, had like the lyrical foundations that eventually started building upon. I think it's a perfectly fine song. There's obviously some like duds on here. I don't think I even need to name them, because anyone that is a fan of Radiohead can name quite a fair few. But yeah, I do think there's 2 or 3 tracks here that I do think are worth my time, which is more than can be said about The King of Limbs. I'm sorry. Now we finally get into the good portion of the Radiohead discography, which is a vast majority of it. There's only 2 albums there that I would say are bad or just okay. The rest of these albums are good to like perfect for me, and we start off with the Bends, and yeah, I'd say this is probably the ideal starting off point, because if you listen to this like first out of any of them, it really does put into perspective just the jump in terms of sound they do for their whole discography. I think if there was any real reason why this is kind of like looked back upon so positively, is probably just because they did kind of like prove themselves on here. A song like Just shows that Creep wasn't just a one-off. They are perfectly capable of making a song that just is just so easily accessible, and it never feels like it was like a compromise for them. Didn't feel like they were dumbing their sound down at all. And it's funny that I mentioned Creep, because there are songs on here that you wouldn't have probably thought that the band that made that would make this. My Iron Lung is the one that comes to mind here, because the song basically talks about Creep, how it was an iron lung for them, which was like kind of like an artificial kind of like respirator that's used to treat polio. Pretty grim, and that kind of like sets the stage for Radiohead as a band, because York will oftenly try and just use kind of like darkish subject matter in order to like paint a picture to make his feelings clear. We get like a good kind of like a confessional sort of take on here, and it keeps your interest more than Pablo Honey by a long shot. I think the band finally had their heads on right. They knew how to go about with their songwriting approach, and everything does feel a lot more fleshed out. My only real complaint with the Bends is that some songs might be a bit meh, but mainly that this kind of, in the context of a ranking, it feels like there's been work done on a new pavement. The concrete has just been set. Some of it's a little bit solid, like you could probably like hopscotch over it, but it's still needing to set. There's still a lot more potential to come from it. And yeah, I'm comparing Radiohead to Pavement. That's my new job now, Liam the Pavement Reviewer. We're now getting to the stage where my notes are getting too long, so I do apologise if I keep looking back and forth throughout it. But we're at Amnesiac, where one of the most infuriating music critiques that I come across on a near regular basis, sometimes daily basis, is somebody saying, oh, Amnesiac, it's just a boneless kiddie, it's just kiddie B-sides, that's all it is. And oh, it's just such a bland statement to make. Like, yes, these were recorded during the same sessions, there's absolutely no denying that, but one, if you're gonna like compare like all work ever to something that is often regarded as like one of the greats, then you're gonna find like most music a little bit like redundant in comparison. You're just not gonna have a good time as a consumer of music. I think Amnesiac just a pretty good record. I think that its abstractness, as opposed to something like The King of Limbs, works totally in its favour. It just overall feels more kind of like pleasurable and evoking. If you were to skip this album, you'd be skipping songs like Life in a Glass House, which is just this lovely finale with it's just a good little cut of jazz. It's in the same style as New Orleans funeral jazz, which was pretty fitting considering just kind of like the bleak tone of this record. The songs on here just don't feel like afterthoughts for me. It does feel like there was some care taken towards them, and I do think that there's kind of like there's a bit debate on here. Yes, they are pretty thin, pretty minimalist in a way, but there's songs like You and Whose Army where, even though it might not be as fleshed out in terms of what it has to say politically, it's kind of like the ideal combination of kiddie style and OK Computer's lyrics. While this album isn't as good as either of those, and I know I'm pretty hypocritical saying that considering what I said at the start here, but I just think this is a pretty good album that I just seem to love more and more every time I listen to. I know there's a lot of people who don't like this, maybe because they feel like it's kind of empty, kind of void of anything, but I just don't feel that way at all about it. I do think there on both sides of this same coin here, there's enough to get something out of. I don't think I would hold Radiohead in such a high regard if it hadn't been for that kind of interesting follow-up to Kiddie, honestly. For the longest time, I did not get this album. I know a lot of Radiohead fans that are big on it. The podcast boys, there's a few of them, especially Jake, who I know loves this record, and yeah, for the longest time I did not get it. And then when I was listening to the discography to get myself all amped up, to get myself ready for this video, I've done it in chronological order, and I just had this like Simpsons movie epiphany. I just realised, hey, this album is pretty good. I don't know why I was like so hard on it. You know what, Shrek Forever After, it's actually a good movie too. It was just a pretty sweet time for me in general. But yeah, I think there's going to be these people that say that this is a bloated record, and justifiably so, because there are points on here where I myself, even though I'm much bigger on this album now, I still think there is some things to critique about it. I'm not that huge on the Glowing. I feel it is a little bit redundant, despite the fact that it starts off pretty promising. I know it's kind of a meme in the Radiohead community as well now, but I know there'll be people that like it. I know there'll be songs on here that, while I might not be as big on them, We Suck Young Blood was one that I like a lot more now, but I wouldn't say I hold it up in the same level as other songs like on here, like 2 + 2 = 5, which starts off the album and just does so in just this great fashion. I wouldn't really hold some songs like that on the same regard, but I do think that for the most part there isn't really any songs bar the Gloaming where I feel there's any sort of hitch. Like, starts off 2 + 2 = 5, just has like a great run up until the aforementioned hitch, and then just all the songs that follow after. One of my favourites has to be There, with just, it's again very like sad tone. It didn't seem like Radiohead ever got themselves out that mindset, but it's where they produce some like really great songs. The alluring use of the tom-tom drums on There just work great, and it even fits in perfectly with how Tom's just talking about temptation, how it takes down these dark paths. Really, when Radiohead are good, or when they're just good, they're great, and this is definitely one of the songs that I hold very highly. Same with Mixed Mitosis, which is also on this album. It feels like they injected like the Kiddie sound with like some sort of like steroid, got it all hyped up, and then basically Tom uses this as a way for him to talk about Radiohead's relationship with the media, and compares it to the infection that killed off tons and tons of rabbits. There's no change in a band like Radiohead, it seems. But yeah, Hail to the Thief, this and Amnesiac, two of their most underrated records. Do not skip this, or Amnesiac to be fair, but do not skip this. You would be doing yourself such an injustice to skip out on this. Oh, hot take alert, hot take on this, kid, watch out. No, I don't know if having OK Computer at number 4 is such a hot take. I know more people have it in their top 2 than anything, and by no means that I think this is like a bad album. I mean, like I say, all these albums after Amnesiac and even the Bends are good, but I still think this is great. I think it's near to being a 10 out of 10 for me. You only need to look at a song like Paranoid Android to see why this is one of the most critically acclaimed albums of the 90s, why people constantly bring it up when it comes to like best albums of all time. You get something like Paranoid Android, which, much like Just and Creep, really tapped into that kind of like just the charts, so just a general public, where it was super catchy, but again, just it's gonna take like the overarching themes on like capitalism, on society, on technology, just the effect it has on us. Like even just like certain lines, like "Screaming Little Gucci Piggy" is such like an iconic line, and every single sentence on here, every single word has its purpose. It's all killer, no filler on this song, and much could be said about every single song on OK Computer in general. It's no surprise you have like an onslaught of other British rock bands from the 90s, from the noughties, probably even contemporary acts that want to replicate what OK Computer did, where all these highs just seem to come out naturally. Like, it just seems to be one after the other. That just fate had it that Radiohead were going to make OK Computer. They were going to build upon the bends. They were going to build upon Pablo Honey, and they were just going to improve just tenfold. There's no way for me that I can like look at an album like the Bends and try and hold it at the same level as OK Computer. It just wouldn't happen. You listen to something like Karma Police, again, another song that people will know just from even if you don't really like Radiohead, or if you manage to like avoid their stuff at this point, you'll have heard it in like some sort of movie somewhere at some point in your life, and it ends in this refrain that just everyone just sings along to it. Every concert I saw them at Transmit, everyone sang along saying for a minute there I lost myself. There's no sort of like creep scenario where some people think, oh, I'm too good for this song, and the thing is, well, it's not like this song, its whole purpose is to reach this point. It basically like it has just basically an acoustic guitar and drums on its back, a little bit of like a bit more kind of like electric guitar in there at some point, but really it's just acoustic drums and guitar, and it works just perfectly. Everything about this album feels just kind of like pretty natural at points. There's not really like a really weak song on here. You could talk about like every song on here to some sort of extent and just have a great time, like just have a great discussion about it all. I'd even defend Fit or Happier. I honestly would. I think the only reason that it's not as high as the other three albums that we're about to talk about is mainly just because, yeah, maybe I've lost myself a bit as well, and I've just realised that while it is still great, there are bands that have made albums of a similar quality, of a similar kind of like concept, and it kind of took the sparkle a bit of it away. Like I think of Block Party and Silent Alarm, and they kind of did it in a different way, but talked about very much the same subject matter, and I'd say it's just as interesting. So when you have that, it makes maybe like a little bit less special for you, but that doesn't take away the fact that it's still great. I think it just, when you're trying to rank like 4 really great albums, you really need to nitpick to try and like figure out where they're all going. So if this is your favourite album, I totally get you. I will not argue with you for putting it up there. It just so happens to be that it's out of the top 3 for me, sadly, but one of the best albums of the 90s, one of the best albums in general, no denying that. Now you're going to find a lot of people trying to call this album mundane or boring. I think boring is kind of a boring critique in of itself, and I think you should kind of make sure you're away from those kind of people, because maybe this album hasn't clicked for them, or maybe they just genuinely don't like it, which is totally fair. But honestly, this was the album that made me just kind of like rejuvenated my hope in Radiohead after I was kind of like unfulfilled by the King of Limbs. It's 2016. They are still relevant. Radiohead still know how to show people why they praise them to the extent that they do. They didn't go in a big bombastic direction. Burn the Witch was his first single from this, and it was still incredibly smart and witty and just very impactful for the subject matter, but it was such like a kind of like, I guess in the terms of this whole album, it's kind of like a curveball, because everything that follows it, it's a lot more skeletal, a lot more ambient, and it's just a lovely album. I really do think you have to be in the right mindset for it, because I think if you go into this expecting something at all similar to maybe something like the Bends or OK Computer, you probably are going to be fairly disappointed. But I think by restricting themselves and just finding a lighter palette of just their own kind of brand, it worked tremendously for them. Nowhere better is this shown than on the song Daydreaming, which is easily one of my favourite songs of this decade. When it comes to me having to do the big task of the best songs of the 2010s, you know this song's going to be mentioned, because Daydreaming is just such an epic. There's nothing really about it in terms of production that is huge or epic in that sort of sense, but in terms of everything it's doing, there's like always like something going on in the background. It feels like at one moment it's like kind of like wind chimes at the start. Tom's vocals, like these are some of the most like well implemented. It's such a great vocal performance in the sense that like they're randomly brought in at points. It feels like haunting thoughts at the back of your head, and then the like kind of like the orchestral arrangements that Johnny Greenwood sorted. If you've probably heard them in some sort of movie, probably There Will Be Blood, which is probably my favourite work of his. He does collaborate with Paul Thomas Anderson, and he is just great when it comes to like a more kind of like cinematic feel, and this feels kind of like that, but I do think it feels like a lot smaller scale. It's just such a haunting song. And then at the end you get Tom York's vocals, which are reversed, that are basically him saying half of my life, which is so bloody sad. And if you know like the story, during the recording of this album, his partner Rachel Owens, her and him had split up, and she actually died a few months after the completion of this album. In a sense, people do kind of regard this as like a posthumous kind of release, in a sense, because of the kind of subject matter. It's kind of like talking about it, maybe in a sense kind of like how that Nick Cave album Skeleton Trees kind of saw, but I don't think this is kind of like the same. It's not directly about it in the same way Skeleton Tree is, but there's a lot of songs where you could like take it and kind of like go, oh, that kind of relates to it, especially Daydreaming. I know I keep going about that song quite a fair bit, but there is so much love about this song. You really just need to get yourself into the mood and get ready for just this lovely like ambient art rocky release that just showed that Radiohead have still got it. They're not by their best yet, and you're still got reason to be interested in them as a band. This is just, I'm totally fine with having this in my top 3, and probably having people slate me for putting it above OK Computer, because this really did resonate with me a lot. Oh boy. So now there are 2 Radiohead albums that I feel are total 10 out of 10s, the Yellow Flannel, that are just perfect for me. And for the longest time, In Rainbows was my favourite album out of Radiohead's discography. I did not think there was anything better. And the only reason it is the runner-up here is because my love for one album became bigger than the other. My love for this is not disintegrated at all. If you don't know about the production history, this could have been the album that finished off Radiohead. I'm so glad it isn't. Like, you can, once you listen to this album, you can pray to whatever God you believe in that, oh, I'm so glad that didn't happen, because it genuinely is just so concise. It's just 10 tracks. I do think that's the shortest in terms of number of tracks. It's not shortest in terms of length. I think there's another album of theirs that goes out 42 minutes. I think that might be Pablo Honey. So it's not a huge departure in terms of like the length of an album, but it does feel a lot tighter. There is not a single moment where this like falters, where this feels like it's hit a pitfall or fallen into a pitfall, I guess. It never feels like it never feels weak at all. It's constantly on this strong form. 15 Steps starts things off kind of mellow, but just so lovely, so melodic, just genuinely brilliant. I'm struggling to find the words to use for. I think one song on this album I do think that I can talk about a fair bit is probably Body Snatchers, and even then I recommend, if you're not even going to listen to this album and you're just here to hear my thoughts of where I'm ranking things, listen to Body Snatchers just now. It's just it's so manic. It is just, I'm struggling to talk about this album, which I think maybe folk will think that, oh well, you must not like this album that much, but I genuinely do love it. There are songs like Weird Fishes that I'm sure that if you found me at a bar and wanted to talk about Radiohead with me, talk about that, we would probably end up just doing that backing vocal that Ed does, that is again another meme in the Radiohead catalogue. But just everything about this album, just it never. I can go back to this time and time again. I can't just put one song on it. I think there are certain Radiohead albums, basically every Radiohead album that I've mentioned so far, where I can maybe put like a song or two on, and I don't need to listen to the rest of the album. And Rainbows isn't that. It doesn't feel conceptual at all. It just feels. It feels pretty cathartic. It feels like at points it's very manic, at other points it feels like it's very kind of like more relaxed, but it never feels weak. There is just so much love about this album, and maybe at some point I'll be able to actually word myself a bit better, but there's just sometimes there's not a huge lot of rhyme and reason. Sometimes something is just great for the fact that it's great, and this album just definitely is. The vocals are beautiful, just instrumentals, the lengths that they went to in some of these songs, like Weird Fishes, like Body Snatchers, just totally has to be commended. Just so much good work done here. I'll stop rambling now, but please listen to this album. It's the most natural 10 out of 10 you'll probably ever listen to. So a bit of a story time here, because the first time I heard anything off of this iconic 2000 album by Radiohead, I was watching Sopranos for the first time, back like in the early 2010s, when I was starting to kind of watch a lot more kind of adult TV, and I was watching the episode No Show, which it was starting to reach its credits. This episode was about characters kind of like starting to come to terms with their pressure, kind of like their internal demons, and just this weird mesh of electronica, near indecipherable lyrics, and just eerie distortion began. I knew it was a song. I knew it wasn't just like somebody randomly hit some like buttons in a keyboard and it came about. But it was like my relationship with kind of like metaphysical songs, where there's not really much to kind of like grab onto, was very limited at this point. And I just thought to myself, you know what? I'll jump on Google. I'll see what the hell this song is, and I notice, oh, this is a song by Radiohead. This is the title track of Kid A, and I'm just like, what the hell happened? And that must have been like the general kind of reaction from a lot of people. This is a truly special album that I'm sure if I was around about for when it actually released, I probably would have been shocked as well. There's a general absence of just guitars in general. There's something to be said about an album that's like the follow-up to the critically acclaimed iconic album like OK Computer, which kind of critiques technology a lot and its impact on society, and then has the follow-up album be like just totally embrace it. Just the use of just kind of like electronic vocals, just the absence of kind of guitars, and in favour of just going down a more electronic route, just served Radiohead so much better. For the longest time though, I didn't think this was as great as people made it out to be. I did think it was a tad overrated, and it was only really back in kind of 2017 when my partner got me a couple of for the longest time though, I thought this album was kind of overrated. I didn't think it was great as people made it out to be. I didn't think it was as weird as people made it out to be. And then my partner got me a copy of it on vinyl back in Christmas of 2016, I think it was. And as corny as it sounds, I put it on, I played it, and just like all the little touches you get from vinyl really just kind of like just kick-started my love for this album that I just never really had beforehand. Beforehand I just thought it was pretty good, and then I just thought, this is a perfect Radiohead album. This is. I somehow loved it even more than I did in Rainbows. This wasn't like an instant thing, it was something that I started to explore for all the different formats, but I just found myself getting more and more drenched in this very just like dark, sticky, minimalist approach they were going for on here. There is just so much to love about this album. Like I say, the title track felt unlike anything they'd made before. While In Rainbows has like the most like interesting production history for Radiohead, out of Radiohead's kind of career for me, Kid A is still pretty interesting as well, especially considering that OK Computer was a huge success. Tom York basically had a mental breakdown, and Kid A was just this like over the top reaction to it all, where everything just kind of like got filtered down to like its purest essence, and that is why it's so brilliant. How it just every song works into each other, just how incredibly raw it is, just how at points it feels totally manic, that it feels like it doesn't make much sense, but it just ultimately does. Just everything starts to work with each other just great, and it still feels weird to me, but not in a way where I feel like it's like a Trout Mask replica, where like it's trying to basically be good just because of how weird it is. It does feel just kind of like an outlier, and it just feels utterly mesmerising for me. It's an album that I just admire a great deal for what it stands for what it has to say, for how it goes about doing it. I really haven't came about a record that tries to do what it does, and I've had the same reaction to it. People will mention how artists like Autechre and Aphex Twin were kind of doing similar things in the 90s, and that's probably where a lot of that influence for this album probably came about. But I don't think that should take away from it. I think what Radiohead ended up doing with that influence was for the betterment of them. I wouldn't compare the work of Aphex Twin and Radiohead, because there's not really much point. This probably is the closest relative they've got, but what they're doing are purely different great things. And Kid A, yeah, just amazing. One of the best pieces of music to ever be created, and in my opinion, I think there's probably a lot of people that think that, so I'm not in like a minority here. I know people will think that. Maybe not everyone watching this will think Kid A is their best album, and maybe you totally disagree, But hopefully I made my points clear about all these albums. Maybe I've rambled a bit too much about some, not enough about others. Just sometimes things make sense to you, you know why things work, and sometimes there just is no rhyme or reason. But Kid A is just Radiohead's best album for me. If you want to ask me any questions about any more of my thoughts on Radiohead, if you disagree with my ranking, if you totally agree with my ranking, which won't be a lot of people, but I'll be interested nonetheless. And yeah, just thank you for watching. Sorry if this went on too long, I've not edited yet, but I can tell it's probably going to go over 20 minutes. But thank you if you've stuck around till the end. I totally appreciate it. Maybe see if you like some other content as well, that would be really nice. But yeah, thank you for watching. Take care, stay safe, stay hydrated, and I'll see you guys soon.